To this other top story now. The South African Defence Force troops that are part of the SADC Force in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo are unable to move or act freely. The force, which is made up of mostly South African soldiers as well as MONUSCO peacekeeping troops, are stuck in the area. This is despite a decision last week by SADC heads of state to withdraw the troops from the DRC. A meeting of EAC and SADC representatives met in Zimbabwe on Monday to map the way forward. The meeting considered that the most urgent need is for the airport to be opened so that troops can get supplies and begin to return home. For more on this, we're joined now by Newzroom Afrika's Qaanitah. Qaanitah, very good afternoon to you. So many things going on all at once, and we're going to talk about, what the president of Rwanda has done, what the M23 stands, and where this puts all of us. But let's start with our soldiers being stuck, unable to move. What, in very real, practical ways does it, or terms does it mean?
Yeah, so we obviously last heard from the head of state meeting of SADC. Now, this was an update meeting between the East African community and SADC ministers to get, as a temperature check of where things are. And the reality of it is that there has been no cessation of hostilities, that the situation has gotten worse in the DRC, and that these troops that now, as a result, their mandate has been withdrawn by SADC, cannot move and cannot do anything. We must recall that there are injured soldiers that are still in DRC that have been unable to come home. Obviously, the South African National Defence Force and SADC has not been talking too much and updating with regards to what the situation is on the ground in the Eastern DRC. But we know now from this meeting, this joint meeting of ministers yesterday in Zimbabwe, that the situation is not getting any better.
But then how does it measure up with what the president told us, especially last week, repeatedly, that the reason we are withdrawing, or SADC is withdrawing from the Eastern DRC, is precisely because the peace is holding, the cessation of hostilities?
It doesn't seem that way. And as you'd recall, there ought to have been a very important meeting today, the first of its kind, direct negotiations between the DRC government and M23 in a process that is led by Angola. And that meeting was meant to happen in Luanda. Now, the East African community and SADC is pinning their hopes on those processes. They're now saying we are taking a different approach. The approach is we cannot only engage militarily, that there needs to be a political engagement that takes place. And so they've come up with a three-phase process to this conflict, right? One arm of it is this Luanda peace process, but overall they are saying that this cannot just be persistent fighting, that there has to be negotiations that take place. The statement from the Zimbabwe meeting does not take into account the reality of it, which is M23 saying we're not going to participate in these discussions. And so that tension still persists. Now, what is these three phases? The first phase is a 30-day phase. 30 days they have to deal with the most urgent situation, which is to get any ceasefire on the table. That's absolutely important because troops cannot move in or out if there's persisting fire. Second, to negotiate the opening of the two airports in Goma and surrounding areas. That's critical because the humanitarian situation on the ground is seen to be absolutely dire. And how then do you transport troops in and out? So that opening of that airport and other key infrastructure is absolutely important. In the second phase, which is 30 to 120 days, so 1 month to 3 month process, or rather 1 to 3 months, the focus would then be on ensuring political dialogue. And that political dialogue eventually has to lead to the long-term strategy, which is to get those territories back from the M23 and under government control. It seems like a pipe dream by Bravuyo because...
That was what I was trying to think. I mean, if the M23 has gained so much territory, why would they freely want to give that up because that gives them a lot of advantages. And remember, the Eastern DRC, this is where all the minerals and everything are. So it's the best position, let's put it that way, certainly as far as the M23 is concerned, to be in. You are in charge. You know, you are where essentially the economy is. Would you just give that to President Tshisekedi, even though, he is the legitimate president of the country, but I just don't see them doing that politically. Otherwise, they'll be giving up everything that they are currently leveraging on.
And so that's why they're saying that political engagement is everything. But for that to happen, you need M23 at the table. And right now, as we speak, M23 is at no table because they believe that the talks that were meant to happen in Rwanda were overshadowed by other international interests. So there's a lot of movement that's happening. And again, all of this is underpinning that you need some sort of ceasefire, that you need a cessation of hostilities for the people of the area that have been displaced and thousands that have been killed since the start of this renewed conflict in January. The other point to make is that this conversation between EAC and SADC ministers does not take into account that it has never been, it's unprecedented to have this type of solution within 6 months. South Africa has been part of peace talks in the DRC in the early 2000s. It was endless and did not end for months and months and months and months. And still, there was a continuation of hostilities. And so there's this sort of underpinning optimism that says, okay, we cannot only handle the situation militarily, that SADC troops will withdraw, and that was a big, big win for Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who said SADC had no business being in the DRC. And then at the same time, all of this hope being pinned in the Kenyan talks and in the Angolan talks, but M23 saying that they're not going to come to the table.
We shall see what turns out of this. We'll, of course, be bringing you more information, hopefully a little later on. There is another meeting here in Johannesburg between former President Thabo Mbeki and Joseph Kabila of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Hopefully, we'll get some insights from that meeting as to where this process should go next, given all the challenges that Qaanitah Hunter was talking about. We shall see, but we do have a reporter there, Zianda Ngobo, who will, of course, bring us an update as soon as that meeting, or those two gentlemen, come out of that meeting to give us a sense of what they would have spoken about.